Let's talk about the ugly parts of ABA therapy and why, despite it all, I still believe in its goodness. This video is part 2 of a series where we unpack some of the common and fair criticisms about ABA therapy. Today's statement we'll be unpacking is ABA drills compliance. We'll first unpack what the statement looks like. Then we'll zoom out and take a look at the science because, as outdated as some of these practices feel now, they came from somewhere. There's a clinical rationale, even if it no longer fits in our current values. Finally, I'll propose what a better version of ABA can look like and how you, the parent, can advocate for a more modern, compassionate ABA for your child. If you don't know me, my name is Celeste. I'm a BCBA who's been in the field of ABA for over 12 years. I educate and empower parents on how to better connect with their autistic child, how to really get in their world and teach meaningful everyday skills. And today, we're talking about ABA, its ugly parts, and how to advocate while understanding the science behind it. It's how we can harness its effectiveness in a way that works for us in 2025. We'll unpack that today. Today we're talking about the statement ABA drills compliance. So for example, like if the instructor says, do this puzzle, or time to clean up, or wash your hands. So after the instruction is delivered, if the child displays any refusal to do it, what follow through looks like is the therapist physically guiding the child to complete the task. But the question is, what happens when the child doesn't want to complete the task, okay? And in my experience, the way I was trained across multiple ABA agencies is that ABA's default procedure is to follow through, which means to physically guide the child to complete the task, even if they don't want to. Even if they pull away, whine, or start crying, follow through. Okay, stay with me. We'll address the obvious ethical concerns here in just a bit. Let's discuss the clinical rationale behind follow through. The whole clinical rationale behind why follow through exists is because we're trying to change the current contingency, the current learned pattern. Let's do a mini ABA 101 lesson. Learning behaviors happens in 3 parts. There's 1, 2, and 3. The unwanted behavior exists here in the middle, and what happens before and after the behavior shapes it. The environment increases or decreases, changes how the individual responds over time. For example, I drive to work, I do my job, and I get paid. If what happens after the behavior was favorable to the individual, the behavior increases. It's strengthened over time because it continues to serve the person. It works. In our example, I'm going to continue doing my job because I've learned over time that I get paid and it's favorable to me. I like getting paid. How does this translate into your ABA therapy? Okay. So for example, when the adult says, clean up, the child runs to their room, and let's say the adult walks away and says, okay, I'll give you some time, and never comes back. The current pattern that the child has learned is when something I don't like is presented, I run away and it permanently goes away. I like that. It serves me. So in the future, when something yucky is presented, something aversive, the child is likely to engage in the same behavior, to run away because it worked in the past. Okay, so follow through might look like this. The adult says, clean up, the child runs to his room, and this time the therapist guides him back into the first room and physically helps him clean up by holding their hand over his and placing each toy in the box one by one. I believe that learning should be assent-based, motivating, and the right amount of challenging. What does that mean? What is assent? Okay, it sounds kind of like consent, right? Very similar. Assent is defined as a learner's voluntary agreement or willingness to participate in therapy activities, which is different from consent given by a parent or a guardian. It's about ensuring the person receiving therapy is comfortable and actively engaged. So I have the child's permission. This could be verbal, like the child saying yes. It can also be nonverbal cues, like the child leaning in or smiling or sitting relaxed. Okay? Here's an example of assent-based treatment. So back when COVID was present, we had to wear masks in a lot of public places. It was mandated for us to wear masks in the grocery store. And a lot of our autistic learners weren't used to wearing masks and only had to wear it when they went out with their parent in the community. And that was a problem. I had a parent come to me and say, can we make it a goal for him to wear his mask? We originally started with putting the mask on him, and the little boy would rip it off or pull it away and start whining or crying. And it got to the point when we pulled out the mask to run the goal, he would run to the other room. He would not even want to come in the room. Okay? And I remember just like racking my brain, like, how do we navigate this? Okay, this forcefulness isn't working. We ended up re-strategizing, taking a step back and really assessing the variables. We put in some strategies, and one of them was to obtain the little boy's assent before we ran this program. So I removed the direction for the therapist to physically place the mask on him. No more. Now it was the therapist to hold it out and kind of offer it. And through repetition and practice, it got to a point where we would offer the mask, hold it out, and the little boy would lean in, like put his little face in, and we would gently help him put it over his ears. And that was a turning point for me a few years ago when it was like, wow, we don't have to force this cooperation. We can wait and gain the child's trust and cooperation. Ask for it, right? And if at any point we offered it and he didn't want to do it, we would never follow through. We would never force him to wear it, to put it on. My second argument is, if the child doesn't want to complete the task that we're asking, like for example, pulling away or starts whining, either it's one of two things or both. Either the task is too hard or the motivation to complete the task isn't high enough. Let's start with low motivation. If tantrums, crying, running away takes place, that's on me. I failed to obtain the proper motivation. What is he working for? Is it worth it to him? If I say, hey, first clean up, then you can earn TV time, and the little boy blinks and turns away, the motivation isn't present. My clinical implementation is weak. When motivation is high, cooperation increases. If you've checked the motivation box and tantrums, crying, or running away are still happening, it's likely the work task is too hard. And again, that is on me. Okay? Too high response effort. Take the cleanup example. Just because the child can clean up or they've done it before doesn't mean it's easy for them. If it's too hard, we lose the cooperation, and then even the highest reward or payoff isn't even worth it anymore. Reduce the work task to obtain the child's cooperation. Build the child's momentum over time, and then once cooperation is really fluid and smooth, systematically increase the response effort incrementally over time. Then you'll see gradual behavior change. Right? So there are alternatives to blind follow-through. So follow-through is forceful. Assent is gaining the child's permission to complete the instruction. Ensure motivation is present. And also ensure The difficulty level is appropriate for the individual learner. Start by talking with your ABA supervisor. Share your values, your concerns, and what you hope therapy will look like for your child. Remember, this should be a collaboration, and as your BCBA, my role isn't just to create a plan. It's to work with you. Your insights matter, and together we can shape a model of ABA that reflects both clinical best practices and what feels right for your family. To recap, we discussed the statement ABA drills compliance. ABA therapy is grounded in the science of behavior, how our actions are influenced by what happens before and after them. When a therapist consistently follows through after an unwanted behavior, like a tantrum, the idea is that the child learns avoiding the task doesn't work. The expectation remains, and the therapist will support them in completing it, even if it's hard or uncomfortable. This poses great ethical concerns. In light of a better ABA, clinicians should take responsibility for the child's learning. If challenging behaviors show up, we're not doing something right. We should take the time to assess motivation, modify tasks when needed, and gradually build up skills over time. If this was of value to you, be sure to check out part 1 of the series or move on to part 3 next. Leave me a comment if you learned anything new or had any insights along the way. I'd love to hear your thoughts. From your favorite BCBA, you got this.